about 5:30 in the evening, and because it's not so late, there's a little bit of yellow reflecting off the clouds. It's a warmer day today. That's going to hold throughout the winter apparently. It's supposed to snow more this winter than normal. And that requires the temperatures not to drop to ridiculous levels. If it's too cold outside, then all the moisture in the air disappears. There is something of interest to talk about today. And that is the idea of all the things you can say without actually saying those things. It's a quirk of language and of our knowledge base and understanding that we can essentially express an idea without directly stating that idea. We can essentially talk around an issue where everybody has an understanding of what we are talking about, but we don't have the need to actually come out and directly state what we mean. This is a very interesting aspect of language and of our ability to represent the world. It shows the true complexity of our brains. The idea that the human brain is so good at picking up on indirect language and forming conclusions on that indirect language is really fascinating. That is something I believe computer systems will have a hard time picking up on. Say, for example, you wanted to talk about all the good things in a system, but instead of talking about those good things directly, you only talked about the negatives of that system. Someone could then take your ideas and essentially re-engineer them to understand the good things of that system. It really just goes to show that you don't need a complete set of ideas to have a system which perpetually generates possibilities. As long as you can outline some aspects of your system, you can fill in the rest. It's not outside of our grasp to do things like this. We do it all the time. That's one of the arguments people make when they say that consciousness essentially creates an illusionary reality, meaning that we are not seeing reality as it truly is, whatever that may mean. We are seeing reality as an illusion based off of an incomplete set of data points. In order to create a quote full picture of what reality looks like, the brain takes this incomplete data set and essentially creates what you may term as filler data to create the pictures we see. It's interesting how every idea, or a large component of ideas, branch off into different subjects, while still keeping the same core idea intact. If I, for example, were to compare candidates for a political office, I could state all the reasons in which to vote for somebody. And then from that set of data, people could then come up with the reasons why you should not vote for that person. And then, taking that a step further, they could then easily compare the prospects of voting for, let's say, individual A over individual B. Assuming they had a data set of information on individual B. If we weren't able to think in this indirect way, then I believe that would run contrary to what I believe reality is. Reality being a possibility generator. Being able to think in both a direct manner and an indirect manner I believe increases the possible number of things one can contemplate. So in a sense, again, the universe is acting upon us, or we are representative of the universe. Another thing of interest to talk about is somewhat of a paradox, although I wouldn't call it a paradox, because the solution to me is too obvious. And I believe paradoxes are statements which have no obvious answers in that they're contradictory. However, the following is interesting to think about regardless. If a person holds two sets of conflicting ideas. And they're forced to essentially have a vote where they can highlight only one of those conflicting ideas. What should the person do in this situation? You should vote for the less popular option. Because the most popular option in a democratic society will, at minimum, be given its due respect, will be given a full debate, will be pushed to the forefront of people's minds. By voting for the least popular option, you have at least given that thought some chance to live on. Maybe not even in the present, because feelings may not be strong enough. But you are certainly giving that thought the opportunity to exist in the future, and giving that thought the potential to gain traction in people's minds over time. If you think about it, a lot of the politics that happens on a daily basis is done through indirect means. A lot is expressed by the things that are left unsaid. If you directly give weight to one issue, and do not speak of the other, you are sending the message that only one issue is of concern. Now, you can send the same message by directly talking about both issues and discussing the pros and cons of each issue. However, in politics, modern politics anyway, the former approach is taken, much more so than the latter. People that take this approach of omission understand the difference between theory and practice. In theory, it is nice to say that everyone is capable of critical thought, but in realities, in all practical senses, this is largely a challengeable claim. This is a tactic used by manipulators to get what they want. Instead of honestly stating positions, they set up scenarios in which limited information is given, and based off that limited set of information, it is hoped that you make incorrect indirect connections to what they are saying. This is a great way, or an effective way, of instilling fear in people. If you only talk about the badness of a situation, people are left to make indirect, speculative arguments about the future or about the goodness of a situation. And when this happens, people do tend to miss out on some critical factors. And when this happens, bad decisions are made. Bad decisions which often benefit their manipulator. See, you can talk about the awesome complexity that language and the human mind offers by talking about indirect and direct things. Things that are spoken and things that are unspoken. But one must understand that although there is fascination with this dichotomy, the unspoken word has its limitations. It can lead people to make false assumptions. And although those false assumptions may be to the benefit of some people, they are harmful to others. As the sky gets darker and the remaining pink and yellow coloring begins to fall in the sky.